I will be forever the myth.
You're the king of kings, Arnold.
There's always a pecking order. The little packers never mess with the big packers. So I'm a rooster, and he's a chicken, so to speak.
All right, welcome back to the Bodybuilding Legends Podcast. I have a very special guest with me this week. Her name is Miss Charlotte Parker. Charlotte is an image specialist, and she was Arnold Schwarzenegger's PR person for the peak of his career. Charlotte, thanks for joining me.
Hi, John. I'm happy to be here.
All right, I'm happy you're here too. Well, Charlotte, we always start with our guests at the beginning. So if you could tell us how you got into public relations and how that all started.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting. I actually I was in New York. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, but then I moved to New York for college.
Okay.
And then one of my very first jobs was working at Penthouse Magazine.
Oh, really?
Yes, I worked in the production department for a while. And then after that, at night, I started my own magazine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and it became a cult magazine. It's called headmagazine.com.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, is being relaunched. But in any case, after that, that went on for several years. And then through a series of things that happened, I moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And my very first job, I was looking, trying hard to enter a new career. And my first job was as director of public relations for the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, the Emmys.
Okay.
Yeah. So then after that lasted about a year or so. Then from there, I went to one of the top public relations firms. And then from there, I went to another. Okay. And then I was at Rogers & Cowan, which was a very big public relations firm.
Right. Okay.
And you want to know how I got to Arnold? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Basically? So what happened?
Were you interested in movies when you were younger?
Yeah. So basically, So here's what's going on. This firm, a lot of the very famous people work there, and most of the top PR people were interested in the Oscar kind of pictures.
Okay.
Very serious Oscar pictures. But I, from long time standing, have been an action fan.
Oh,
action
really?
And sci-fi. That's my métier. I love it. Totally into it. And then I said, do you mind if I work on this picture? Because nobody was really working on nobody was that excited at the firm about Conan the Destroyer.
Right.
But I was very excited about it, and I started working on it. So the first time so there I am working on this thing, and I'm pretty new at the firm, and I was young, still quite young.
Okay.
And I get I thought, well, it's time to get the star on the phone. So I get Arnold Schwarzenegger on the phone in Mexico. Okay. He had not met me. And the first thing he did was scream at me, bellowing, why is nobody working on this film? At this big famous firm, that I hired.
Right.
And I said, well, I am. And he said, okay. And then I said, well, what do you want? And he said, what he wanted was all of the European covers. Now, he was very early on in understanding the importance of international.
Right.
But as it turns out, early on in my career at this firm, the first thing I did when they hired me to look for international PR.
Oh.
So yeah. So I was working. In fact, I was working on this. And so I kind of had a feeling about what was happening. I said, fine, you want me to get you these covers? He goes, yeah. So I went out and I got him every single cover. And then I got him, because I was new and excited and very excited about this. So I got him so much publicity that nobody could believe it.
Really?
Yeah, even twice on the Tonight Show. I got him and Grace Jones on the Tonight Show.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Which is really very rare that they take two people, Yeah.
Now, did you know a lot about Arnold before you started working with him? No. Okay.
I didn't know anything.
Because I'm a body.
I didn't even meet him until the movie was over because he was shooting, out of the country.
Okay, so when you met him, he was still shooting Conan the Destroyer in Mexico.
When I met him on the phone with this yelling at me and telling me what he wanted, and I said, okay, I'll get you what you want.
Right.
Then afterward, I met him and he took me out to dinner.
Okay.
When we came, he took me out to dinner at the Palm. I'll remember that always. Okay.
Right.
And I was very excited, and we talked about it, and I told him, this, and so we continued. And the next picture he did was the Terminator.
Okay.
So I remember.
I want to stop you there before we go.
Yeah, sure.
on Conan. Where was Arnold's standing in the PR firm? Because they worked with a lot of Academy Award films and high prestige films. So what did they think of Arnold at that time when you started?
I don't know what they thought. I think, at a company, we love all our, everybody loves all their clients. I don't think that there's anything like that. I think the way that the things fell is that a lot of the people that they had working there were enamored by, as I said, the big Oscar pictures,
right.
and, other people really into the music celebrities and corporate. And this was through in happenstance falling through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
It was not an exciting, but it was exciting to me.
Yeah. Right.
And I was very, very excited about it. And so he, we went there, we took me to dinner, and then the next film.
What did he say at dinner? What was his?
Oh, he asked me what I thought of the film and how it was, and whatever, and we just generally talked, and it was like a nice meal. The Palm at that time was kind of a really hot place, and
I've heard of
it. It was really, it was just getting to know. He wanted to put the face to the phone.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started.
Did you like that movie, Conan the Destroyer?
I as I said to him, I said, I thought you were great.
Right.
That's really, it was a funny thing. That film, Oliver Stone wanted to direct it, but nobody let him. Richard Fleischer directed it.
Right.
And it was fine.
Yeah.
It was not the greatest film of all time, but Arnold, really pulled off another, always, the force of his personality was very powerful. And also the other people that were in it were very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they made the most of it.
I think it got a lot of criticism from the Conan fans because it wasn't as hardcore as the first one, right?
It was not. It was not.
Yeah.
So that was my first film, but but the thing is that I pushed out the amount of publicity that I pushed out. I still have the report. It's like a foot thick,
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so then the next picture was Terminator.
Okay, so that was.
Now what happened was I read the script, and as I read the script, I was going, "Oh my God, this is the most incredible thing I've ever read." You have to understand, I'm a true sci-fi fan.
Right.
It blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to represent this director, who prior to this, James Cameron.
Right.
Wrote the film, and prior to this, he had only done Piranha. I think he'd done Piranha 3 or something.
Piranha 3, right? Yeah.
So I said, this is incredible. This is just incredible. This film was amazing.
Yeah.
And I only had read the script, which blew my mind. But then I remember sitting there during the screening. We had they showed us the screening, the people. I had probably my own screening of the film before, and I was so excited that I could barely keep myself in my seat. And I literally ran out and called Time Magazine after I read this, and I said, "This is the most amazing thing I have seen in a long time." And I remember telling people, I said, "This guy James Cameron is the next Spielberg." I said, "You better talk to him now, because you're not going to be able to talk to him later." And I really, really believed in this thing, and I was like so hot on this that I remember Orion was releasing it.
Right.
And Arnold took me, and he got a real kick out of this. I talked to Mike Medavoy at that time, who was the head of Orion, and I said, "You've got to give this film more advertising." And Arnold was laughing. He loved the fact that this girl was like telling the guy,
the head of Orion Pictures, right?
And do you remember that they made this poster that said Schwarzenegger Terminator, underneath the Terminator?
Yeah.
So I was pushing for that, and I made them. I said, "You give him a full page ad," and Arnold was laughing. He thought it was hilarious.
Right.
And then
the book I read, they said that they were focusing more on Orion Pictures was focusing more on Amadeus, which was their big Oscar.
Yes, they were. Everybody focused on their Oscar pictures.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't understand. They did not understand, you know?
Right.
But I understood.
Right. Well, I remember seeing that movie when it came out, and there was no publicity about it. Like I didn't really even know what it was about when I went to see it. Now I was blown away, and I was like, wow, Arnold was really a bad guy in that movie, you know?
Well, yeah, that's interesting because at first he was not scheduled to have the Terminator part. He was scheduled to have the other part.
Right. Mm-hmm. So when you first read the script, that was before they made the movie?
That was while they were making the movie, but I wasn't on the set, or they had made the movie already and it was they were editing. I don't know, whatever the exact timeline was, but I had not seen the movie.
Okay.
But they gave me the script to read.
Yeah.
And as I was reading the script, I was just so incredibly taken with it.
Yeah, it's an amazing movie. Even to this day, when I watch it, it's still an amazing movie.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And Jim talked about how he was in a fever dream when he wrote it.
Right. Yeah. So had Arnold already decided to do the Terminator part when you were working with him, or that was?
He was already the Terminator.
Already, okay.
And through it was very odd because prior to that, like 5 minutes before that, I had done the Exterminator with.
Oh, really?
With Robert Ginty. So I was doing the Exterminator and the Terminator. But in any case, So I did the Terminator, and I also represented Jim Cameron, by the way.
Oh, you did?
And
okay.
Ellen Hurd. Oh, yes.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yes, because I said, this guy's incredible. Yeah. Have to represent the guy.
You're right on with that.
So I did. So I represented Jim actually and Gail for quite a few years after that. I actually launched Jim's career too in that in terms of PR.
Yeah.
And so what was going on with Arnold is that I was very excited about him. I thought, I said to him, and I literally said this, I said, I am going to make you the biggest star in the world.
You had to love that.
He did. Well, he agreed that he belonged there.
Yeah,
and I saw the vision. I saw it.
Yeah. So what did you see, Charlotte? What did you see when you saw Arnold? Like what did you see that no one else was seeing?
I'll get to that.
Okay. All right.
I'll get to that. But what happened was I was actually in the film division.
Okay.
I was not representing him personally at that time. Okay. I was only representing the films.
Oh, I got it.
The way that the firm was divided was there were people who represented people personally, and there were people who represented people you represented film, you represented television. Mm-hmm. Prior to this, I had represented television in a different firm, but I was representing film.
Okay.
And the films. So my client was the filmmakers, and the whoever was releasing the film.
Okay.
And anyway, one day I get called in to the guy, Paul Block. He was the head of the personality division. He calls me in and he says, listen, Charlotte, he says, Arnold Schwarzenegger has requested you to represent him personally. And I thought, really? I said, I was a very earnest, young person. I'm still pretty earnest, but in any case, they said, so I said, well, okay, fine. So then from then on, I was his personal publicist.
Okay.
Okay. Wow. So then, so the film, then after that, he had only done this. He had done from me. He had done Conan the Destroyer and Terminator.
Okay.
He was doing Red Sonja in Italy, but I really didn't have too much to do with that one.
Okay.
So what happened was Joel Silver one day, I met him. I don't know if you know who he is, quite a famous action producer.
Right.
And I met him and Larry Gordon, and Joel Silver was saying, I've got this picture that I really want Arnold to do. Can you help me? Mm-hmm. So I felt Arnold should be, at that time, he was still with, these independent, people. And I felt he should do a studio picture.
Okay.
So I was jumping up and down, and I lobbied like crazy for him to do Commando.
Okay.
Commando was, Joel Silver was the producer, but that was a big studio picture. So I lobbied, like crazy, and he did Commando, and that turned out to be big.
Yeah. Now, when you say studio picture, so Conan the Barbarian, that wasn't a studio picture? His first
It was, but then he did that. But then he did Conan
the Destroyer.
Then he did Terminator.
Oh, okay. Terminator was a smaller movie.
Yeah, it was a smaller movie, and he was being handed smaller movies. Like independent films.
Okay.
And that was not the vision that I had for him.
Right.
Despite the fact that that's what he was being offered through a variety of different things.
Yeah.
My vision for him was major A-list.
Yeah. Right. Biggest star in the world.
Yeah, that's my vision.
Okay.
And my ability to manifest my vision is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and obviously he was someone who was completely prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want me to tell you what I thought of him, he has a charisma that is so astounding.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in his presence, he has something that I call an X factor.
Okay.
Okay. So I used to be with him all the time when he did his interviews.
Okay.
I was in the room, or I scheduled them and I was in the room.
Yeah.
But I used to feel when I left him, when I would leave the room, I would feel like I could do anything. I could walk on water. I could accomplish anything.
Right.
Because he's a very inspiring person.
He is. Right. Right.
Can do kind of guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's so
it's funny you say that, because when I would see him on like the Tonight Show or something,
mm-hmm.
just that little burst of him on there, I'd be like, that's how I felt. I felt life affirming, or if I see him
very life affirming. I have to tell you that after he did the Tonight Show for the Terminator, he came back in and we dissected it. He said, what do you think I did that worked or what didn't work? And so he really, he was someone, I would say early on, who understood the importance of publicity, of public relations, how to use it.
Right.
What to do with it. Not everyone had that understanding.
Right.
But
I remember the story when his book, Education of a Bodybuilder, came out in 1977. Mm-hmm. I read this somewhere. I think it was one of the stories or his autobiography or something. Mm-hmm. And he talked to the publishing company and they said, well, we'll put you on this little book tour. And he goes, no, I want to go to every major city in the United States. So they booked it out. He understood how important it was to go to all these cities and be there and publicize it himself. And I remember living in Chicago at the time, and I would hear him on the radio, and then he would be on the local television show, on the news, advertising it, and he would be in all the newspapers. So he really was a workhorse. He understood, like you said, the value of publicity.
Yeah, no, he really, really, really did. He always, and I think that made him very valuable too, to a lot of the people that he worked for, a lot of the studios because he was willing to do everything that it took. A lot of the very big stars at the time considered themselves, I'm not going to do this or that, or I'm only going to do so much, but he gave it full force all the time.
Yeah.
So, he did Commando, then he did Raw Deal, then he did Predator.
Yeah.
And the various producers that he did it with, were really, really good, and the directors, and then he did Predator, he did Running Man.
Yeah. So I'm guessing his standing in Hollywood must have really changed after Terminator, right? Because I think people only saw him as Conan the Barbarian, and then after he did Terminator, that was people must have saw him in a different role, right?
Well, I'll get to that too.
Okay.
George Linder produced Running Man. Keith Barish, who was also a wonderful producer, who, by the way, then started Planet Hollywood.
Oh, really? Okay.
Robert Earl. And yeah. So that's another story. But in any case, Predator he did with Joel Silver. Mm-hmm. And then he did Red Heat. But at a certain point, what happened is that I said, I'm not really liking this image. Of the bodybuilders had an image of dumb jock kind of,
right.
They're big muscle guys, but not a lot of brains and not a lot of,
right.
It was the brawn, not particular brains. And I said, you know what? I don't like this image. So what I did was, when I got him the cover of GQ, I insisted that they photograph him in a suit. Mm-hmm. And I had him wear suits. And then what I did is I don't know if you remember at a certain point in time when the thing shifted to what a brilliant financial mind he was.
Right.
Do you remember that? That was me.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because I started putting that out there. I did it because it was true.
Right.
But people weren't seeing that.
Right. They didn't know how smart he was.
They did not know how smart he was. They knew that he was strong and inspiring and whatever. What you also didn't know when you were, unless you were with him in a room or whatever, is how funny and how, I don't know, just the amount of, like you say, joie de vivre and pure energy that emanated from the guy.
Right.
So that's what happened. That was the turning point, I feel, was when I started putting out the stuff about what a financial genius the guy is.
Right.
And that sort of thing. And he is. I mean, there's no question about it. But I got them to do it that way. And then I kept having him be photographed, in suits and talking about the finances. And that's when I think the switch came to the complete A-list.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always amazing. I'm a big fan of Arnold, and I've read a lot of books about him and stuff. But I remember like when he said he was going to get into movies, and he's told this story a million times about how all the agents in Hollywood made fun of him and said, your name is too long and you have an accent and you have a big body and you'll never make it. But what I always really admired about Arnold was that he had this vision of himself as something different than that, and he could see that, and he believed in himself before anyone else did. And
yes, I agree with that. And I think the key to success in a lucky way was finding me in a way. Because I saw that. I think prior to me, he was very, very frustrated that people were not seeing that. And there was no one willing to execute it who had the ability to execute that vision that he had for himself.
Right.
But we were completely in sync. And I actually pushed that train to the degree that he allowed me to,
Yeah. So why do you think you saw it, Charlotte, and no one else did?
Because I saw it and it was there.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're good at what you do.
I'm good at what I do, and I like to think that I'm an insightful person who sees people.
Yeah.
And I saw it in the same way that I saw Jim Cameron's abilities.
Yeah. Right.
I picked a lot of them early, actually.
Yeah, really? Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Tom Cruise, Sean Penn.
Wow.
Yeah. I said this guy's really good. Mm-hmm.
So with Arnold, you said he had the X factor, and he obviously had the charisma.
That's what I call it. I believe he had an X factor. Yes.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so you saw that, and you saw the charisma, and you saw something that he had that really wasn't being projected on the screen yet in the roles he was doing, right?
Right. But then he also was willing to make fun of himself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So after Red Heat, which was a wonderful film, which he did with a wonderful Russian actor, Oleg Vidov, who was like the Robert Redford of Russia, played his partner, his Russian partner. I mean, he's a wonderful actor as well. And then he did Twins with Ivan Reitman.
Right.
I mean, that he was willing to, to make fun of himself there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were throwing in little one-liners here and there throughout all his movies. Was that your idea too, or
No, that was not me. That was him.
That was him. Okay, yeah. Because it took a while before they were able to do a straight comedy.
Well, Red Heat was an adventure in Moscow. Bodybuilding is very big in Russia.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Oh, really? Okay.
We did Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop, which was also a lot of humor in it.
Yeah.
And then T2. Mm-hmm. Right after T2, Jim Cameron came up to me at the screening. And he said, "How cool do I make your guy look?" I said, "Very, very cool." I don't know if you remember T2.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think was the apex of his movie career? Do you think it was Terminator 2?
Yes, because right after that, he did Last Action Hero. And I think because he was so high up, that's how it is in a lot of these things. When you're that big, they want to bring you down.
Right.
The Last Action Hero wasn't that happy a situation.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even though I thought it was a wonderful film, but the press, went with things that weren't true, and they, whatever. Anyway, they panned it. Then he did True Lies.
Mm-hmm. Great film. I love that one.
Great film. Then Junior, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much when, we parted ways after that.
Okay. All right.
But in the meanwhile, just so you know, what Arnold did was during this time, he would have me go to all the various bodybuilding publishers.
Okay.
And say, I want the cover he wanted the cover of all the bodybuilding magazines to go when his film, went out. So he wanted them coordinated because everybody wanted, all the bodybuilding magazines wanted Arnold on the cover, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
So So I went to all of them, and they were all very, very nice, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I met Joe Weider.
Okay.
So I went there. I went to Joe Weider and I said, hey, Arnold would like the cover for, whatever it was. Literally every single film, I would go to Joe Weider.
Right.
Okay. And Joe was, really nice about it. But over time, Joe and I built a friendship and a relationship.
Uh-huh.
And then I ended up representing Joe Weider and the Weider family. And I still do, by the way.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Yes, still do. Joe and Betty Weider. Betty Weider, who is the most beautiful, lovely person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the entire Weider family, who's absolutely brilliant. The family is incredible.
Okay. So what were you doing for them, Charlotte? Representing them?
Well, they have a variety of different things. I mean, Eric Weider took over the company brilliantly.
Okay.
And Eric is a tremendously sophisticated and very smart and very, very, very nice person, but brilliant.
Right.
And took over, the supplements, took over everything. And also he has quite a highly regarded art gallery, Gallery 19C in Beverly Hills that represents 19th century, mostly French art, but
okay.
I mean, the guy's amazing. He ran a publishing company of history magazines. At a certain point, after that, I mean, obviously, so Joe is obviously a brilliant genius in the world of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
No question.
Right.
But through Arnold, I met basically all of the lights and greats of bodybuilding. And I remember and in fact, during this time, as you might recall, Arnold became the the representative. What?
President's Council of Physical Fitness.
Right. He was the chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. Right. And, and he said, I am going to visit every single state.
Right.
I mean, it's only Arnold would do such a thing,
Right.
I'm going to visit them. I'm going to visit them in 24 hours, you know what I mean? But not, I mean, there's no rest for the guy. He's like not. And so I visited many of them with him.
Oh, really?
And I met George and Barbara Bush with him. And so he did a tremendous job. I don't think they've had such a visible, great one.
No. You never even hear of who's running that anymore, if they still have that position.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they do. They do have it.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I remember they did the big workout on the White House lawn, and they had all those stars there, and George and Barbara Bush were there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't he also taking his Gulfstream jet that he got in the deal with Terminator 2? Wasn't it also?
Yeah, in fact, about the bodybuilding, Rob Wilkins, who's a very good friend of ours and the Weiders, is a member of that council now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's wonderful.
Okay.
He's a veteran and absolutely.
Yeah, I know Rob. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a member of the council and he does a great job.
Okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also got to work with Joe Gold as well, right?
Yes. So what happened there was, okay. So, Joe Gold, the famous Joe Gold with Gold's Gym, right? He built that. But then for some reason, I don't know exactly, can't remember the reason, he left to go to the Merchant Marine.
Right.
Okay. And, Joe Gold from way back was one of Mae West's,
Yeah.
strong men and a very attractive. So what we did was Joe came back and he wanted to launch the gym, but he had already sold his name.
Right.
So Arnold, who was very, very close to Joe, said, Charlotte, I want you to help me. I want you to launch World Gym.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to call it World Gym. And then it said World Gym operated by Joe Gold.
Okay.
So Arnold and Joel, my partner, Joel Parker, and me, we launched World Gym for him, the big one, on Venice. And it was a huge party with all these stars and everything. And that's how it got started. Okay. And I used to go there all the time, all the time. I would see Joe and Eddie Giuliani and they I still have all my the sweatshirts with the gorilla on the front and the back.
Right.
And,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just really, really great. And so I would go there and that's how that happened.
So you got to know a little bit of the bodybuilding world then, right? Through Joe.
Oh, very much so.
Joe Gold.
Very, very much so. I knew the bodybuilding world very much.
Yeah. Did you go to a lot of the competitions? Did you go to the Arnold Classic?
Yes, that's what it was. That Joel and I, we launched the Arnold Classic for Arnold.
You did? Wow.
Oh yes.
Kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
Arnold said, I want to have a contest. You have to understand that Arnold, movie star that he is a bodybuilder at heart.
Yeah, exactly.
He really, really is.
Yeah.
And so it's not like some guys who might use it as a stepping stone and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
No, he is a true through and through bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So he wanted to launch a contest because he was really into it.
Mm-hmm.
So he looked, he had a friend.
Jim Lorimer?
Yes, Jim Lorimer.
Okay.
Jim Lorimer, brilliant guy.
Yeah, great guy.
Absolutely brilliant. And worked for a big insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives in Columbus, still does.
Right.
And so that's why they have it in Columbus, because Jim lived there.
Right.
Bob Lorimer has now taken it over.
Mm-hmm. His son, right.
But that's what was going on there. And we worked on it with Richard Newberger, who was there, and Richard Newstead, who was in Columbus.
Okay.
And so Joel and I launched that. Now, in the meanwhile, Joel was representing the Olympia in Las Vegas.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes. So we were in this thing coming and going.
Right. Yeah.
And then I remember the day, now when Arnold became governor,
Yeah.
he did one thing that was really amazing. He did Joe Weider Day in Sacramento. I don't know if you're aware of it or you
remember that now. Now that you mention it, I remember that.
That was a big deal. That was like every major bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Joe and Betty, who are so lovely and generous.
Yeah.
Flew people up and they took care of them. And it was just an incredible day of celebration of Joe Weider.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing.
And in fact, many years later, when Joe passed, I actually worked on the memorial with Arnold. It was me and Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
We put together the big memorial for Joe.
Okay. Wow.
And Arnold was extremely generous and couldn't do enough.
Yeah.
And he couldn't do enough for Joe.
Yeah.
And he's still very, very close to Betty.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, very close. Yes.
Yeah. He no matter how big he got, he always gave credit to Joe Weider for bringing him over here. Bringing him over to America.
Yeah. Joe, listen, talk about loving bodybuilding as much as anyone in the world. That was Joe Weider for you.
Yeah. Right.
Joe Weider loved bodybuilding. Joe Weider's story is incredible too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe was a kid in Montreal, skinny kid.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, he would suffer, a lot of the anti-Semitic slurs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, he got this magazine, just like Arnold did, right?
Yeah.
When he saw Reg Park.
Right.
Joe kind of happened against this, earlier. It was earlier, obviously, and in Montreal.
Yeah, 20s, yeah.
Yeah, and he said, "Wait a minute, I can do this." So what he did is he ordered, he tried to order this stuff, and he didn't have hardly any money, so he would pay the guy 50 cents a week. And he was delivering groceries on a little wagon, and he'd give most of the money to his parents.
Right.
And of course, his brother, Ben Weider, who of course was the head of the IFBB, and a brilliant businessman, Ben was as well.
Yeah.
And so Joe, he finally got these weights. And once he got into these weights, he could not believe how wonderful the experience was and what it did for his body.
Yeah.
So it was like as though he found, the meaning of life, religion, and he wanted to share it.
Right.
He wanted to share it. That's really where Joe came from. He said, "This is so great. Everybody needs to know how great this is."
Yeah. He was truly passionate about it in his heart and soul. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw Joe in 1950. Joe wrote, "I Predict."
Mm-hmm.
I could go grab it if you wanted.
Sure.
And read them. Okay, Joe wrote these in 1950.
Okay.
"I predict that civilization will speed up in every phase and that the stresses and strains on mankind will continue to increase. I predict the resulting increase in mental and physical illness will force the world to recognize the importance of systematic exercise and physical activities." When Joe was doing this, nobody was working out.
No way.
Nobody was working out.
Not in 1950.
Betty said when she was modeling, and Betty was quite the famous model.
Yeah.
She actually early on also, worked out very early with weights to help strengthen her, because she was a skinny kid and she wanted to have strength, and a brilliant woman as well as beautiful. But she said that what they did when she would do ads for stockings, they would hoist her up on a hoist so that her calf muscles wouldn't show.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah. And Joe told me, he said that he wanted, that they were afraid that football players and baseball players would become too muscle bound.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now it's de rigueur. Now everyone must train.
Everybody do it. Yeah. Right.
But before, when Joe was doing this, it was unheard of.
Right.
So number 3 was, I predict that bodybuilding will become the chief form of systematic exercise and physical activity, and that it will come to be looked upon as one of the greatest forces in the field of preventative medicine. I mean, he really was a prescient guy,
Right.
I predict that a full realization of the importance of muscular development will sweep the world, and the sport of bodybuilding will grow. I predict the basics of good bodybuilding, which include a balanced diet, adequate sleep, plenty of fresh air, ample sunshine, and regular workouts will become the basics of living. Now, is that ridiculous? I mean, that was not thought about that.
Right.
I predict that bodybuilding will become the stepping stone to every other sport, that the art of relaxation, one of the fundamentals of bodybuilding, will become more and more important as tensions increase, that it will spread to every corner of the world, that those who practice this will live healthier and happier lives, and will become one of the greatest forces in existence. But that was Joe Weider for you.
Yeah.
Someone who, believed in it. And so that's how his magazine started. It was just, people started asking him things like, because he would go to certain competitions. So he would mimeograph these things in his kitchen.
Yeah.
And that's how he started, with physical, the thing, and he would mimeograph it, and then it became more and more important. And then, the story of how he wanted to get it published, and he would go in, and he was this kid, and the publisher said, "Mr. Weider," he said, I'm waiting to talk to your father. He said, "No, I'm Mr. Weider." And so anyway, that, the stories of all of this.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Did you see that movie Bigger that came out a couple years ago?
Of course.
Yeah. What'd you think of that?
I loved it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I know Dan Solomon, who helped get that whole thing.
Yes,
going.
And also another wonderful producer.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit, Charlotte, about Arnold's relationship with Stallone? Because they had kind of a contentious relationship in the,
Okay. So here's what happened there.
Because they're good friends now, right? I mean, they're
very good friends.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what happened. Arnold, normally, I would give him recommendations of what to do and what not to do.
Okay.
In other words, in terms of publicity, because I was an expert, right?
Yeah.
And I had very good instincts.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, the interviewer, for Playboy, they wouldn't, they wanted to do that famous Playboy interview.
Right.
So this woman, she came to Arnold and said, "Let's not get the publicist involved." And I said, "Please don't do this." I said, "Let me be there at the meeting.
Okay.
Let me be part of it," because, I was there. I mean, look, the guy's a professional. Arnold's a brilliant guy and a smart guy, but everybody could use some additional looking out for, right?
Yeah, backup. Right.
Right. And I knew him inside out, and I knew everything. And, but she talked him into it, and she said, "Let's not get the publicists involved here. Just do it with me." And I begged him not to do that.
Right.
But he did it. And then he said that he told her things off the record.
Mm-hmm.
His opinion, I can't even remember exactly what it was that he said.
Right.
Something about Stallone, And he claimed that it was off the record, and she claimed it wasn't.
Okay.
So she published it, and then the rest, that's where the feud started.
Yeah.
And there was nothing I could do.
Right.
At that point.
So if you would have been there, you would have told them not to say that at all, right? Don't say anything.
If I had been there, I don't know what I would have done in the moment.
Yeah.
But at least somebody would have been a witness to say it was off the record, at least.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
You see what I mean?
Right.
I may have said to her, I may have said, let's not go there.
Mm-hmm.
Or, because usually I did not participate in these things. I was just in the back unless I heard something that bothered me.
Right.
And this would have probably bothered me,
Yeah.
And if he had said off the record, then I would have double checked with her and made sure that it was off the record.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what I read is when they did those Playboy interviews, I read that the reporters would come in for several days, and then the subject, the star, would become so comfortable with the reporter that they would start to divulge stuff that they probably wouldn't do if it was just like a 1-hour interview or something.
Right. They would look for things. And my job was to prevent that.
Yeah, right.
Not that there was any big secrets that he had or any big whatevers that he had, but that people say things in unguarded moments that they don't necessarily want on the front page of the New York Times,
Yeah. Was there any damage after that interview came out?
I wouldn't say there was damage. I would say that there was a certain rift in their relationship.
Sure. Yeah.
It's funny because at the beginning, I would always marry him up. I would make sure that before he was big, I would only talk about him, in relation to other big stars. I would constantly put him in that group. And that's another one of my methods of getting him
I read that
in that way. Yeah. But once he was in that group, I don't think that he would have wanted, a rift with him.
Right.
And they did ultimately make up because they're both, brilliant, incredible people, but very, very different people.
Yeah. Did Arnold really feel that way about Stallone when they were rivals? Because I know he was kind of like that with his bodybuilding rivals. He would try to, do psychological games with them and try to psych them out in order to get an advantage.
I don't think that he gave a tremendous amount of thought to. I mean, I think how he is. He's he likes to poke his rivals.
Right.
He's a poker. He likes to poke people and get them riled up. But I don't think there was any deep feelings. I'm sure he very much respected, everything that Stallone did. Who wouldn't? Yeah. But I think that he was, how it is. And he may have known, I don't know. I can't remember what it was about, but I don't think he had any disdain for him. He may have said things that he, would rather not have said. I don't think necessarily things that he may have known or felt, or I don't know.
Yeah.
In the moment,
because they were rivals.
They not wanted to have divulged.
Yeah. They were both in the same genre. They were both making the action movies. They were the two top guys at the time.
Right. But I mean, I think that there was something there that he said that was I can't remember exactly what it was anymore. But it was something.
He was talking about his personality, how he's kind of phony and he tries to be like Arnold. He's working out hard in the gym and things like that.
Yeah, I don't remember. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I can't remember what specifically it was anymore, but but I know that whatever it was because we were in Cannes. Then we all went to the Cannes Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all there. He was there. Stallone was there. It was very interesting.
Right.
We all stayed at the same hotel, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is where all the big stars stayed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. It was very
tense.
It was tense, and I think that we tried to get it was then that we put together a what's it called, a photo session of the two of them together.
Okay.
Because he was represented at the same firm.
Oh, really?
But at that time, I went on my own at that point. I had my own firm after that for quite a long time after that.
Okay.
I represented Arnold and Jim Cameron and John Davis and a lot of other people that we did on our own. And Joel worked on the Olympia and we did the Weiders and we had our own.
Yeah.
We broke off from them quite a while. Much earlier than that.
Yeah. Did you recommend to Arnold that he should do a movie with Stallone at that time when they were both big stars?
No, that wasn't. That didn't come up, and he didn't ask me.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, I think that since then they're buddies now.
Yeah, I know.
Stallone came up for Joe Weider Day.
Yeah.
Because Arnold asked him to.
Yeah, he had Arnold in the Expendables, and yeah, they're
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stallone's a brilliant guy. He wrote those movies. Yeah. But they're very, very different as people.
Mm-hmm. Were you with Arnold when that controversial book came out from Wendy Lee?
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Unauthorized Biography.
I really was. I was right in the middle of that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Famously so.
Mm-hmm.
Famously so.
So I'm sure you had to do a lot of work with all the people he interviewed with, right? Because he didn't want to talk about that book.
Yes, I was right in the middle of that. And I did. I talked to people at the Cannes Film Festival. I didn't want them talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to become a thing. Because I knew that he wasn't like that. I'm Jewish.
Right.
And if I felt that there was anything there, believe me, my parents are Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, so many of us around him,
Right.
if I felt there was any shred of truth to that.
Yeah.
But it is true that his father, did belong to the Nazi party.
Right.
His father was a policeman.
Right.
A lot of the Austrians, in that time were, he talked about his father was a rough guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he voluntarily did a fundraiser for the, Simon Wiesenthal Museum, where he was one of the first guys to raise $1 million for them. He did a big thing.
Wow. Yeah.
That was something he wanted to do. It wasn't something he did because he had to. He wanted. It's just not him.
Yeah.
Joe
Weider was Jewish also. Joe Weider was Jewish also.
Very much so. Yes.
Right.
So, but he's not that kind of a guy at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it is true that his father did do those things, and
right.
Yeah,
I like how you said you called it marrying him up. So when he was working his way up the Hollywood ladder and he was going to these events and stuff, you would have him take pictures with bigger stars than him.
Yes, and I always mentioned him in the same breath as those people.
Yeah.
Like his good friend Albert Busick. Do you know Albert?
Sure. Yeah.
He's an absolute, giant in Europe, and somebody who I love very much.
Yeah.
And Albert's father too. And Albert completely divorced himself from that. Albert is one of the sweetest, most loving, most also brilliant people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Arnold would do these events where he'd have to walk down, where they have all the reporters along the street, and he has to walk down. So you would get there ahead of him, right? Yeah.
I would always go right ahead of him, and I would pre-interview everyone.
Right.
Before he came down.
Right.
So it was always easy as pie for him to come down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got all the people all ready.
He was a publicity machine. Every time a movie came out, he would just go out and all the talk shows, and he would talk about the movie. I notice a lot when I'm watching TV and I see various actors, especially today, when they're on and they're there to promote a movie. They don't even talk about the movie. They'll talk about nonsense, where Arnold would always get to it. And he would always bring in the movie into the conversation. Oh, yeah.
Arnold was hilarious. You could say, it's nice weather today. And he would say, the weather in my movie was so nice.
Right.
Didn't matter what they said,
I remember I saw an interview with Jim Belushi when they were talking about Red Heat. Mm-hmm. And then the scene where they're in the bus and they're running through Chicago and they're knocking over all these monuments and stuff. Mm-hmm. Arnold's talking about how they were driving through Chicago and they're knocking over all those monuments. And Jim Belushi was like, in reality, we were in Hollywood and they were just making the bus go like this. We weren't in Chicago at all. We weren't driving.
I was in Chicago with Arnold during that.
Yeah.
I still remember we went into a bakery. He wanted to get something, a cookie or something.
Uh-huh.
And we went in and everybody was so excited. He came in and he had to sign all these bags. But that's the thing about, he was very, very nice to everyone.
Right. Well, he loves being in the limelight, right? He loves being a star.
I think that's a bargain that you make, when you become a star.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to be recognized on the street, then don't be a movie star.
Right. Well, that's what he wanted, though, from the beginning of his career, right? He wanted, when he got into movies, he wanted to be the number one star. That's what he saw of himself.
Yeah. And the thing is, he had what it took to back it up.
Yeah.
In terms of, he had star power.
Yeah.
And I saw that.
Right. So when you started working with him after Conan the Destroyer, you saw that he had the potential to be the biggest box office star in the action genre.
I believed that with all my heart, and I said, I'm going to make it so.
So I
had the vision.
Charisma. Yeah. The physique, the charisma, everything. You knew he could make it.
I just felt he had it.
Yeah.
I felt he had what it took. I wouldn't have said that to someone who I didn't feel that had what it took.
Right.
Other people have other things,
mm-hmm.
Going for them. And those things are also wonderful.
Yeah.
it's just, I saw that for him, and I saw that there was a path directly there that I felt I could take. I just knew it.
Yeah.
And I knew that Jim Cameron was going to be one of the biggest directors in the world. I knew it. And the guy had directed Piranha 3 prior to this.
Right.
So I saw it.
Well, it's kind of luck or fate or whatever that him and Jim got together right at the peak, right at the beginning of their careers, really, right?
Right. And I was right there.
Right. And then they had you to publicize them.
Right. And I think it was a very, fortuitous, grouping of people. I mean, they had the talent. I mean, Jim was an amazing, brilliant. I just read the thing and I said, I don't care. I'd not seen him. I didn't know what he looked like. I didn't know how old he was. I just had read a bio that he wrote about himself, and I read the movie and I said, I'm all in for this guy.
Right.
All in for Jim Cameron, whoever he is. I'm all in for this guy.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I worked on Gail Ann Hurd too, who he was married to at that time, as a producer. And she became quite the big producer after that. I believed in her too.
Yeah. Wow. No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And it also was a great turn of events too, that it all happened in the 80s when you had the Reagan era, and then you had all the sci-fi movies and all the action movies, right? That was the era of the action movies.
Right. So that's what it was. I was there at this place where everybody was really into these, Oscar, things or rock and roll things. And I'm the one there thinking, I love action sci-fi.
Right.
And there I was. And so
you're in the right spot. Right.
Right.
Because if this would have happened in 1970 or 1974 instead of 1984, it probably wouldn't have taken off like that.
Right. It was just one of those things where you were everybody was in the right place at the right time for that thing to happen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Charlotte, you're still working now then? You're still in the public relations business?
Yes, I'm still in the public relations business. And I still do image consulting, and I'm also relaunching my publication, headmagazine.com.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great.
Yep, I still am.
So what's that about?
In other words, I did this before I got into public relations.
Yeah.
I was actually a cult figure in the late 70s. Yes.
No kidding.
I was the guest of honor at the International Hallucinogenic Mushroom Conference.
Okay.
Along with R. Gordon Wasser, who was the creator of LSD.
Okay. So that's what the magazine's about, head.com. It's about
it's not head.com, it's headmagazine.com.
Headmagazine.com. Okay.
But that's okay. Head.com is tennis.
Okay.
It's about, at that time, it was about marijuana and counterculture.
Okay.
Pop culture. Now it's about cannabis and pop culture and, everything around, all those things now.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I relaunched my iconic brand.
Yeah. You're going back to your roots.
Mm-hmm. But yes, I still also got the public relations business along with Joel Parker.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And Joel also, and Joel does the Olympia?
Not anymore, but he did for quite a few years. He worked on it.
Okay.
He was the public relations guy. But once David David bought it, I actually worked with David briefly.
Okay.
Not on that, but on some other things. But then it's all different now. Yeah. And Dan Solomon's a great guy. He's doing an amazing job. He's a
great job. Yeah.
Wonderful person.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, very much so.
Mm-hmm. You're all in the same state there.
Yeah. Florida's a state for bodybuilding. Yeah. And what are you doing for Betty Weider now, as far as publicity?
Betty has a website. She also, she devotes herself to Joe's legacy.
Okay.
With Joe's website and Joe, with all the things that Joe does. And Betty's a very smart person herself. She has quite a lot of, she has her own businesses in real estate that she deals with. And she is one of the smartest, kindest.
Yeah.
And still very beautiful.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Inside and out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, Charlotte. Well, thank you for joining me on the show. This was great for me because I'm a big Arnold fan, and I've read about you in all of his autobiographies, or his biographies, I should say, not his autobiography. So I wanted to talk to you and find out how you did the magic with Arnold in the movies and making him a star.
Well, I hope that it helped to some degree, and it was very nice to talk to you too, John.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for joining me.